I'd like to follow up on the 3D question with John Lasseter. John, I think what you said before about the beautiful imagery in Ponyo is a terrific example of the philosophy you've often expressed to us, that the story determines the technique that you use to tell it. But there does seem to be this tremendous, almost craze to get 3D out there, or to get animated features in 3D. What do you think it adds to the storytelling to have that? Because it can seem somewhat gimmicky if it's just being added for the purpose of throwing somebody at the audience.
Yeah, I think I've actually loved 3D for a long time. I have a collection of old 3D cameras, and in the 80s I was taking lots of photographs with 3D, all different types of cameras and techniques. In fact, I took my wedding pictures in 1988 in 3D. And in 1989, we did, Pixar pioneered doing character animation with computer animation in 3D. I think some of the first ones done in a short film called Knick Knack, the one with a little snowman, was in 3D. And there was like the problem was there's no theaters in the world to show it in. You know, there was one old revival house in San Francisco that still had a silver screen, and we would kind of go down there and try to get the two projectors lined up, and it was just such a pain. And then, so for 16 years or so, and we never saw it in 3D, and until now, theaters have finally kind of caught up, to a certain extent of what we've been wanting to do. And as we have been, one of the things that got me personally excited about computer animation was within the computer, you're creating a truly three-dimensional world. That was so different, from the way I was trained with hand-drawn animation, which is very much a two-dimensional world. And in fact, it sort of changed the way that we made films at Pixar. Lee Unkrich, who's directing Toy Story 3, he came on Toy Story very beginning as an editor, but his whole background was in live-action filmmaking, and he really kind of taught us animators who were used to the two-dimensional world, really about film grammar and the setting up of shots, so that the evolution of the filmmaking style at Pixar, you started introducing much more kind of, in some sense, live-action style of staging of things within a three-dimensional world. So we kind of have been making sort of 3D films for a long time. We've just been looking at it with one eye closed, And to me, when you do 3D right, and I think Up is an example of our philosophy in 3D, and that is really to just basically show the three-dimensional world like a window into this three-dimensional world, and it sort of envelops the audience into the story. That much more. We do a lot of things on Bolt, for instance, with Disney. We did a lot of very innovative things where, depending on the emotional place that the main character is at in the story, we actually controlled the depth, so that when things are kind of closed in and when it becomes big. And like on Up, for instance, when Carl is in his house, it's just very contained. And that's consciously, and then he takes off with the balloons, and you start seeing vistas that go on forever, and especially when he gets to the Tepui and the fog clears. It just, you can feel like you're looking for miles into this world. And in the same way, and I think that there's a lot of things that are gimmicks in 3D that the term is, it pops you out of the movie, takes the audience out of the story. And as a director, I'm constantly thinking about the suspension of belief that the audience is in. You want to keep them in that place, keep them on the edge of their seat, and that's where I think audiences get truly entertained. And in computer animation, there's a lot of things like intersection, where one object can move right through another object. And it's something that we're not familiar with in live-action films or in the physical world. And as soon as that happens, people go, ooh, that's weird. And they're not thinking about the story anymore. And I think that a lot of coming-at-you gags and stuff, if they're just in the regular storytelling, tend to do that to the audience too. And there's a place for that kind of thing, that's more fun, kind of coming at you sort of stuff. But in the storytelling, we like to stay away from that and let the audience just get enveloped in the story. Computer animation, you know, and animation in general is a great medium for 3D because you're crafting the film kind of frame by frame and you have total control over it. So that's why animation has been kind of what they say the early adopter in 3D, or that now you're starting to see a number of live action films that's going to start coming out that are using more 3D. And to me it's also, it's another tool for the filmmaker to use, you know, to help tell their story. That's the way I view it. And it really works for our medium. And I don't know if you guys seen, but we're also taking Beauty and the Beast, since it was digitally painted in composite, we have all those elements separately, and we're doing a 3D version of that. And it's surprisingly compelling. It's really, at first I thought, oh, this is gonna look like those old Viewmasters, you know, a bunch of cardboard cutouts set up, but it's not. It's actually really beautiful. And it kind of, and for me, it gets the movie back into the theaters. So, because these Toy Story 2, and Beauty and the Beast have not been seen on a big screen for such a long time. And that's something that's really compelling to me. So families can see that on the big screen again.